This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner.
Hey, sheepdogs. So, what am I talking about? Beware halo knitting. So, halo stands for high altitude, low opening, and knitting is knitting. I've talked about this before, but I don't think I've ever done so in a microsode. So, I was in a conversation with some friends several years ago, and we were talking about some of the things that creeps into the church safety space that is of a dubious nature. So, if you're a mechanic, there are some really incredible things you can learn about being a mechanic. But if you're a small engine mechanic, there's training for advanced jet engine technology that you just don't need. More aptly, there are things that are really cool to learn that you will probably have exactly zero application for. So what do I mean by that? Well, in real life, if you were being trained to do high altitude, low opening parachuting, but you were being trained to knit while you were parachuting into an objective, that is completely useless. It's about as practical as halo knitting. And so it's kind of a joke that I coined. There are some instructors that I would learn from them anything that they wanted to teach me. If they wanted to teach me halo knitting, I would learn it from them. Would I ever need it? No. Would it be cool to know? Yes. Now, that said, if we are learning super advanced room clearing tactics, but we have exactly no medical equipment and training, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Firefighters don't train unless they work at airports. Firefighters don't spend a lot of time on extremely hazard material training and training to put out jet fuel fires until they've covered the basics of finding people in burning buildings and how to operate the equipment of their fire truck, working within those parameters. Because without the basics, the advanced stuff is absolutely useless. But there are aspects of really advanced firefighting that are very, very specific. Unless you're a smoke jumper or you're working within a high-rise building in some major city, that's what you're likely to be doing, is putting out a fire on the 50th floor. There's aspects of certain firefighter training that you just don't need until, or if ever, but you don't need it until you've covered all of the basics. And so if you've covered the basics, then you can move on to the advanced stuff. And I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice. It's really easy to get super excited about training, and heck, I want you to get super excited about training. I want you to be like, wow, I really want to know this stuff. I can't wait to learn this stuff. I really need this in my life. But you need to be covering weapon retention and you need to start at your very extreme basics over here. You got your concealed carry permit, then you go to an intro class and all the stuff I've talked about. You start working your way up through defensive 1 and defensive 2, but there's stuff that you're probably not ever going to have an application for. And what you are not as your church is a SWAT team. And in the significantly less than a 1% chance that you'll ever see violence in your church, those skills could be useful, but make sure you have your fundamentals covered first, because there are some things that we can spend a lot of time training on that we're not only never going to use, but they could actually be detrimental in a situation if we find ourselves in a situation where we need to go hands-on, or we're literally facing opposition coming into our church body. We don't want to go straight for our gun. I've talked about this when we need empty-handed skills, and we don't want to go straight for our empty-handed skills and going hands-on with somebody. Ideally, you never have to do that, because you've got all of these arrows in your quiver that are your verbal de-escalation skills, and these things build on each other. They're cumulative. So there's kind of a training triangle there where you cover these fundamentals and then you build on them and build on them and build on them, and you're honing and sharpening these skills as you go up the tree. The fundamentals follow you up this pyramid. And we just need to be careful that what we're not doing is setting ourselves up for failure by going down avenues that have exactly zero functionality. Like, if I'm training in room clearing, that's one thing. But if I'm training in breaching and in throwing in flashbangs and grenades as a private citizen, when am I ever going to need that in real life. Now you could say Red Dawn, you could say some end of the world scenario, that's fine, but don't do yourself a disservice. If you're learning advanced slicing the pie techniques, but you don't understand fundamental de-escalation, if you don't understand the very basics of medical, you could be the most skilled room clearing guy who bleeds to death from a paper cut because you didn't understand the basics. It's not sexy, to understand these basics of medical until it matters, and then you're a hero, or you saved your own life. So it's something to think about, and we need to be very careful not to get stuck on halo knitting when we don't understand just the basics. God bless.
If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.